Hello everyone. It is going to be a very hot race weekend. We are here at the Sachsenring. Welcome everyone. Great seeing you all. Only 3 more race weekends to go in this season. It's going to be spectacular. And the man who is leading the championship is Calvin van der Linde. We see him there. He's getting all dressed up, all ready for the qualifying. He is 7 points ahead of Mirko Bortolotti. But you can be sure with only 6 more qualifyings and 6 more races to go, they're going to be fighting so hard because at this point everything is open. It's all about the championship, and surely this guy really does want to get the crown. We'll see how he does in the qualifying. Obviously, every point counts. So let's do it. Let's start with the qualifying, and here's your commentator. Do enjoy.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saxon Ring, an anti-clockwise circuit. We first came here in the DTM back in 2000. Klaus Ludwig was the first ever DTM winner at this fantastic circuit in the east of Germany. And we've only had 7 races in the DTM. We raced here in 2000, 2001, 2002, where Laurent Aiello took a double victory on his way to his first title for Abt Sportsline, their first victory at the Saxon Ring in the DTM. But then we had a 21-year break from this period before we finally came back with the DTM last year in 2023. And there were victories 12 months ago for Luca Stolz in the Mercedes and in the Lamborghini on the Sunday for Mirko Bortolotti. It's going to be a hot one, as Verena said. Last time out at the Nürburgring, the weather played havoc, as it always does. But here it looks to be the first properly warm, dry, sunny weekend all the way through that we've had in 2024. Yesterday in free practice 1, which happened 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was over 30 degrees and the track temperature was nearly 35 degrees. We had the second free practice session in a different format that we've got this weekend. And normally get both free practices on Friday, but we had one yesterday and one this morning, finished about an hour and 20 minutes ago. The track temperature at the start of the day was around about 17 degrees. It's already up to nearly 24. The air temperature is 24 degrees. So it's hotting up here. We had a lot of drivers running off the road in free practice 2 earlier on this morning, coming out of turns 12 and 13, the last 2 corners in particular. So that will be worth keeping an eye on. Calvin van der Linde, as you can see, is the championship leader. Finished 3rd in the championship in his first season in 2021. He's got a 7-point lead over Mirko Bortolotti. Maro Engel is only 12 points behind. Shelton van der Linde, with his first win of the season last time out at the Nürburgring, the 2022 champion, rocketed from 9th in the table up to 4th last time out. René Rast dropped down to 5th after a bad weekend, and Thomas Preining is still in the hunt, last year's champion, in 6th place. But for Rast and Preining, they both have 5-place grid penalties. For Rast and Preining, it was for picking up their 3rd reprimand. In Rast's case, it was for that incident he had involving Maro Engel, the net race leader, when René came out of the pits on cold tyres. Maro, who'd already got his new tyres up to temperature, went to go around the outside of him, and the 2 made contact and both span. So René got penalties in the race, but also a reprimand means he's got a 5-place grid penalty for race 1. So he'll be 5 places back wherever he qualifies in this one. Thomas Preining picked up a late track limits penalty in the 2nd race at the Nürburgring. So that was his 3rd reprimand as well. So he's also going to have to start 5 places back. Ironically, something that happened to Calvin van der Linde last year. He qualified 3rd on the first qualifying session here at the Saxon Ring 12 months ago, but had a 5-place grid penalty. And his teammate Ricardo Feller also last year had a 5-place grid penalty. It's not the place you want that, because Saxon Ring is a tricky place to overtake. There's so many high-speed corners here. There's not many huge, big braking zones. So qualifying is going to be absolutely critical. And with only 7 points between the top 2 in the championship as well. So 20 minutes of qualifying coming up to set the grid for race 1 of the weekend. It'll be round 11 of the championship, and the 16-round championship. And my name's Chris Hartley. I'm here in the commentary box overlooking the start-finish line. I can see on top of the garages that you're looking at on the TV pictures, there's a huge crowd gathered already overlooking the pit lane. It's always a really well-supported event, this, and it is a wonderful circuit, the driver's favourite in many cases. Certainly one of my favourites to come to. It's so quick here, it's so undulating, and you get so close to the action. Absolutely love this place. So the Sachsenring, host for the 7th weekend of the season. And alongside me, Chris Hartley, in the commentary box, we can say good morning to Brian Oliver.
Good morning, Chris. What an absolute highlight of the calendar it is to come here. Always sunny at the Saxon Ring. That's how it seems anyway. The circuit with so much undulation, blind crests, steep drops, tight corners. But this qualifying session will be very important, especially important for Rene Rast and Thomas Preining with that grid drop. But for all the drivers, overtaking opportunities are few and far between here. It is a very unforgiving track. The gravel traps are very important here because overtaking is not easy. So this is going to be an important 19.5 minutes. We'd expect to see the cars coming out doing their installation lap. A lot of cars potentially coming back into the pits for the heat-soaked section of qualifying. And then in the second half, it'll probably be all cars out on track going for it to get that grid position. But with the sun shining and more rubber getting laid down, potentially the best time of the session is going to come pretty close to when the clock strikes 0. So back timing this session so that your driver crosses the start-finish line just before the clock strikes 0 could be the key to the teams earning a pole position.
Free practice 1 yesterday. Kelvin van der Linde was quickest of all, 1 minute 18.599. That was comparable with the free practice times from 2023. Thomas Preining was second yesterday in the Manthey Porsche, and Lucas Auer in the Mercedes for Team Manfilter, run by Winward Racing, was third quickest. Then this morning, Mirko Bortolotti kind of held back for the first 15-20 minutes of the session, then went out and then put in some very quick lap times in quick succession. And the SSR Performance Lamborghini ended up top of the times, 1 minute 18.044. He went out, did the laps, came back in. We didn't see much more of it after that. So it was a real statement in free practice 2 from the driver second in the championship. A winner here on the Sunday of last year. So SSR Performance's Lamborghini, Mirko Bortolotti, quickest time of the weekend so far. That came about an hour and a half ago in free practice 2. 1 at 18.044. Jordan Pepper making his debut was second quickest. More of that in a moment. Let's hear from Thierry Vermeulen.
So let's make sure on the next lap that we don't have any traffic and stuff like that, because you'll kill the tires.
Copy that. We'll do our best.
Yeah, it's Thierry Vermeulen on the radio too. His engineer, Emil Frey. Make sure not on any traffic, because tyres are a key thing here. I'll talk about that in a moment. Just to go back to Jordan Pepper, though, on his debut, he's standing in this weekend for Christian Engelhardt. I can see the car, the gold and black Lamborghini, run by Grasser Racing Team, number 63, opposite the commentary box, just in the pit lane at the moment. Jordan making his debut, standing in for Christian, who's still continuing to recover from this knee operation he had a couple of months ago. So he missed the Norris Ring and the Nürburgring, was replaced there by Franck Pereira. And this weekend, Jordan Pepper is standing in, making his debut. So 3 South Africans on the field. He's raced a couple of times this year with the team, with Grasser Racing Team. And is somebody that's used to race against and compete with Kelvin van der Linde in VW Polo Cup racing in South Africa. Came up to Europe, raced in the Sirocco R Cup, has then gone on and raced in things like the Blancpain Endurance Championship, very successful and a champion there. GT3 Challenge Racing, the Nürburgring 24 hours, a Bathurst 12-hour race winner as well. And he did an excellent job to be second quickest behind Mirko Bortolotti in free practice 2 this morning. Lucas Auer was quick again in third place. So tyres, Brian, here on this circuit, 2 things. 1, it's quite abrasive, the circuit. And 2, you've got 13 corners and only 2 of them, turns 1 and 3, are right-handers. Everything else is a left-hand turn.
Yes, anti-clockwise circuit, something a little bit different, and historically has been very hard work on the tyres. Interestingly, the Porsches seem to have suffered with tyres in the past, but we will see how that plays out. Of course, in DTM, we do have a tyre change during the race, but tyre preservation could be everything. And again, we're looking at this qualifying session, and getting the most out of the tyres will involve being at the end of the session in the right place at the right time. Looking at Riccardo Fellow getting all dressed up, ready to go. Interestingly, most of the cars have been out for their installation lap, now back into the pits. In fact, everybody back into the pits for the heat-soaked cycle. That's with the exception of the ABT Sportsline cars, which have just remained in the garage. And as has been the case for the last few rounds, ABT Sportsline adopting a completely different strategy to everybody else in qualifying.
Yeah, that's softened the way, isn't it? Particularly with Riccardo Fellow. Didn't Wasn't at the top of the timesheets by any means in free practice 2 this morning. He was towards the bottom of the timesheet. 7th in the championship, Ricardo, looking for his first podium since the second weekend of the season at the Sachsenring. He's been scoring points, but not challenging for podiums recently. He's been in and around the back end of the top 10 most of the time. So it's like a frustrating season for the driver, third in the championship standings last year, especially as his teammate, Kelvin van der Linde, is leading the championship. Qualifying here last year on Saturday, Lucas Stoltz got pole position with Ionjin Nguyen having his best ever qualifying, joining him on the front row of the grid. Ionjin with a different team for his second season in the championship, but still as a Porsche racer. And he looked pretty handy in the practice sessions. Then on Sunday, Mirko Bortolotti and Jack Aitken made up the front row of the grid for race 2. Jack Aitken had a pretty torrid weekend in the end. He challenged at the front for both races, but contact in the early stages of race 1 here 12 months ago caused radiator damage and a retirement for Jack Aitken. And then he had contact in race 2, which gave him a puncture. That was contact with Lucas Stoltz in the pit stop phase of the race. So 2 retirements for Jack last year, but he was very, very quick. So we'll see how he gets on, although he was saying after free practice this morning, we're about half a second off the pace, and we're not really sure why. And that's always not a nice place to be. And of course, after free practice 2 this morning, Brian, they only had an hour to try and figure out the data and try and figure out a better setup for qualifying.
Yes, and you already mentioned we saw a lot of drivers exploring the outer limits of the circuit and the gravel trap in some cases, but pleased to say there wasn't any damage because that really would have put the teams on the back foot. You can see from your pictures that there's a big crowd in here enjoying glorious weather conditions. They're going to get a bit of a wake-up call in a moment. You can also see from your pictures that every single car is in the pits. I think they should reduce qualifying to 10 minutes myself, but fortunately I don't make the rules. Give it another couple of minutes and we're going to have a lot of cars out on track. But all of the cars that have been out, that's everybody apart from the AB Sportsline Audis, been out, got a bit of heat into the tyres. Now they wait for the heat into the brakes as well. They're waiting for the heat. Let's just have a listen to Jordan Pepper for a moment, so then I'll come back to that.
Nobody's on track, huh?
Nobody.
We can
no one.
head down
All
to
are in
Verena
the
now,
box.
who's down in the pit lane, and she's going to get some news down with AB Sportsline. Verena.
And I'm here with Martin Tomczyk from Abt. Martin, it's very hot outside, and obviously if you're looking down here, I mean, a lot of the cars are in the box, the shelter is down. I mean, is it because of the heat, or what is the strategy? Tell us about that.
Well, obviously, a lot of teams again went out to do the heat cycle. We, as we did so far in the season, we do not do. So we trust on our plan. So we will see. This morning it did not work out that well for us, so the track was not good for us. Obviously better for the other manufacturers. So we're hoping the best. As hot it will be, the better it is, I guess, for us. So now we will see in a few minutes all the cars going out and trying to find their place on the track and setting the lap time, and hopefully we are the one of the fastest.
Hopefully, yeah. But one more question, because earlier one of your mechanics was measuring the racetrack. It was just before the qualifying. He said it's 31 degrees. So what are you expecting? How much is it still going to heat up? I mean, it's going to be a very hot weekend.
Yeah, it will heat up much more. I think we saw yesterday around 40-45 degrees in the afternoon. So this we will face in the race. That makes it not that easy, because in the race it's a lot of stress for the tires, especially here at Sachsenring. We saw this already in the past years. So it will be a little bit tricky for the drivers, and hopefully, I mean, it's always a question when you stop the car, when you put the new tires on, when you put the used tires on, how much you're in traffic. So all these things play together, and at the end of the day you have to manage it the best way you can.
So once again, to sum it up, tire management and strategy is vital, especially here at the Sachsenring in this heat. Yes,
and to start in the very first rows, because to overtake it's quite difficult here.
Absolutely, and at the moment, I mean, Calvin is 7 points ahead of Bortolotti. He is the leader of the championship, so it's all about the points.
Yes, every point counts.
Right, but back, you need to get your back to work. So I think I can hear some engines again. So let's do it. Qualifying, here are your commentators. Danke, Martin.
Excellent, thanks very much, Verena. Great insight there from the 2007 champion and team principal at AB Sportsline, Martin Tomczyk. So again, it's going to become essentially a 10-minute session. Yes. They're all now going to complain about having no space on the track. And with the amount of drivers, Brian, that were running off the road, we don't have any spins and proper offs, but we must have had 7, 8 cars that ran through the gravel trap big time, coming out of turns 12 and 13 in the free practice session earlier on. So it's definitely going to be a risk of somebody losing it and bringing out, potentially yellow flags, or maybe even a safety car, maybe even a red flag. And if you haven't got your lap in time, you're going to be in trouble in this session.
Yeah, it's he who dares wins in this session, isn't it? The white knuckle ride. How late dare you leave it before you go for your push lap? Just to finish what I was saying before we spoke to Martin, the heat in the brakes after that installation lap, in theory, moves through the rims and into the tyres. That's what they call the heat soak cycle, or the heat cycle. So the car's now with, in theory, nice warm tyres and brakes. Of course, tyre warmers are not allowed. But now the driver's out on track. But as you say, how late dare you leave it? Because the track is warming up. I think our probe must be in the shade, because it says on our readout that the track temperature is 23.9. Martin Tomczyk had something about 10 degrees hotter than that. But whichever way you look at it, the sun is beating down. The track will get quicker as it warms up and as more rubber is laid down. But if you leave it late, you risk that red flag or a yellow flag in a sector, and suddenly you could find yourself at the back of the pack. In
theory, you should be able to get 2, maybe 3 consecutive quick lap times, but it'll just be that one run, one chance that you have, essentially. To give you an idea of times, the qualifying lap record around here set last year, this is in terms of GT3s in the DTM, Mirko Bortolotti in qualifying 2 last year, 1 minute 17.366 seconds. Another thing that, going back to the tyres, is difficult around here is related to the fact it's an anti-clockwise circuit. Most of the corners are left-handers, therefore, and so all of the tyre wear is on the right-hand side tyres of the Pirellis. But getting the tyres up to temperature early in the lap in sector 1 is really difficult, because there are only 2 right-handers on the whole lap, and they're really early in the lap, turn 1 and turn 3. So you get up to turn 4, turn 5, and you haven't really ever got any heat into that side of the car on those tyres. So it's very tricky to get things absolutely spot on here. And we know we're going to be talking about thousandths of a second, the difference between a couple of places on the grid and potentially being on pole position. So this is it, everybody. Strap yourselves in. The 11th qualifying session of the season, the first of the weekend here at the Saxon Ring. We've got 7 3/4 minutes to go, and nobody has yet set a lap time.
Yeah, it feels like we've been waiting a long time for this, and now suddenly it's all going to come at once. Expect to see the names at the top of the graphic on the left-hand side of your picture changing regularly as the cars cross the line. So out at the moment now, just building the temperature once again, getting the tyres into the window. It's going to be a little while before the times start to come. We're following Ayhancan Guyen at the moment, still building the temperature. Very important to keep it out of the gravel, keep the tyres clean. But it's going to be an exciting 7 minutes of qualifying coming up. He's flashing the lights already. I don't think there's anybody in front of him, not that close anyway, but clearly man on a mission.
Had fluid spillage coming out of the car yesterday in free practice. Ayhancan Guyen couldn't see where he was going. That sent him off the road at turn 11. Hopefully that has now been sorted. Just to tell you how the lap is divided into 3 sectors as well. And we're looking at sector time. Sector 1 is really long here. It's basically half of the lap. It's from the start-finish line all the way up to the exit to turn 7. So a really good sector 1 time. It would be about 39 seconds of a minute and 17 lap. Sector 2, in terms of time, is very short. That only takes in the very quick left-handers at turns 8, 9 and 10, and then the little kink at the top of the hill, the waterfall at turn 11. That only takes about 16 seconds to get through. And sector 3 basically takes in the back straight, the run downhill into the final 2 turns at 12, and then the uphill turn 13 that brings you over that blind crest you can see in the background back to the start-finish line, and that will take around about 20 seconds. So get sector 1 right, which is pretty much half the lap, and you're on for a good one. We're not yet there. 40.9 for Ayhancan Guyen at the start of this lap, but I think we should be getting to the very low 40s, probably the high 39s, to see a really, really good first sector time. So it won't be on this lap, but maybe the next one where we start to see some impressive lap times. And remember, Preining and Rast, 5-place grid penalties. Wherever they qualify, there'll be 5 places further back on the grid for race 1.
So free practice this morning, to remind you, was a 1:18.044, expecting to see times well into the 1:17s here. Cars all with new tyres on. You saw that on the graphic earlier on your screen. So about a 1:17 something, I think, will be the early benchmark that we'll be looking for. So at the moment, Ein Cheng-Nguyen the quickest with a 1:19, so he's still building at the moment and about to start a push lap for him.
Clement Schmidt has just gone absolute best in the middle sector, the shorter sector, but he was 0.3 off the best time so far in sector 1. Marco Wittmann with a absolute best first sector briefly, but then Lucas Stoltz, who was on pole here last year on the Saturday, absolute best first sector so far, 40.4. Still think we've probably got to go quicker than that, but you never know, the track might have changed since we were experiencing it this morning. It's certainly got warmer since then, but we should be looking at 1:17s compared to last year. It was very similar weather last year. Bortolotti now goes quickest in sector 1, 40.3, 13 seconds. It's a little bit ragged there from Lucas Stoltz, pushing on. Again, it's catching them out coming out of turn 12. He comes over the rise, comes over the crest, crosses the line, sets the early benchmark time, and that's the first time of the weekend in the 1:17. So 1:17.729, but there's more to come, and it's coming from Marco Bortolotti, who crosses the line and goes much quicker. 1:17.338, provisional pole position for him ahead of Stoltz. And Jordan Pepper, excellent once again in third place. He said after free practice yesterday, I felt straight at home, felt good straight away, and he's doing brilliantly. But he's going to get quicker and quicker every time somebody comes through. Vermeulen goes third quickest. Preining is on a absolute best first sector, a personal best second sector. So in about 15 seconds time, here he comes. Thomas Preining will be coming through, but at best he's going to be his third row of the grid with this penalty that he's got. Can he get the Porsche up into the fastest time so far he goes through? Yes, he can. 1:17.199. We are absolutely flying, everybody. So even quicker than last year. Qualifying lap record has already been broken, Brian, by a couple of tenths of a second.
What a lap that was. Everybody in the 70s now. Sheldon van der Linde is under investigation, has been reported to the stewards for blocking Ricardo Feller in turn 12, so potentially some strife coming his way. Jack Aitken, the quickest of anybody in sector 2 in the Ferrari. He climbs the hill up into turn 13, out onto the pit straight, so this is going to be an improvement for Jack Aitken. He was in P18, he crosses the line at 1:17.288, puts him provisionally on the outside front row, provisionally on pole position, taking into account Thomas Preining's penalty.
Yeah, bearing in mind, he lost 3/10 alone through the first sector. Let's hear from Marco Bortolotti.
I think I can go faster, man, I need it.
Push, we need 1/10.
Give me a clue, he says. Well, you're third at the moment. You'll be second on the grid with Preining fastest with this 5-place grid penalty that he's got. Bortolotti, in terms of the gap to Aitken, half a tenth of a second, 0.050 seconds. And yeah, bear in mind, Aitken lost a lot of time relative to the fastest first sector time through the first half of the lap, but the Ferrari was well set and he was utterly committed through the second half of the lap. Sheldon van der Linde 13th. Schubert Motorsport saying they've struggled with qualifying. He's averaged 13th on the grid. Oh, that's Lucas Sauer through the gravel trap. He's in the gravel trap in both races here last year, but he started the weekend well. He's been third in the 2 free practice sessions. He'll rejoin, but that has probably absolutely ruined his qualifying. At the moment, he's only in 11th place, and only in 10th place, Brian, is the championship leader, Kelvin van der Linde.
Yes, Martin Tomczyk wasn't bluffing when he said we're struggling for pace here this morning, as we see once again Lucas Sauer. Very important to keep the car moving, because once that gets stationary, it's not getting going again in that gravel trap. But yes, Kelvin van der Linde in 10th. Ricardo Feller at the bottom has not yet set a competitive time, although he's just done that now, so 1:21.393. So Feller has yet to put in a hot lap. There's René Rast also exploring the gravel as well.
Do you know what? Ricardo Feller, he's more or less going to be the last one to cross the line. He just came through with about 1 minute and 29 seconds left on the clock. It means he should get back here with 8 or 9 seconds to go to start another lap. Let's hear now from his teammate, the championship leader.
Idiot went off in front of me, man, twice.
Copy, mate. I saw. Prepare next lap if possible. Prepare next lap if possible.
Probably wasn't deliberate.
A distraction he probably could have done without.
Yes.
Oh, so already René Rast has come into the garage. 17th, 5-place grid penalty. He's going to be starting dead last. Is that a case of save the tyres, or is there just no more to come? Preining is in as well. No more to come from him. At the moment, he's on, well, provisional pole, but he's got a 5-place grid penalty, so we'll drop back to 6th. And as it stands, Jack Aitken is effectively going to get his 4th pole of the year. But what about this man? Riccardo Feller is a roll of the dice here. Is it going to work? He often does this. Rolls the dice. He's the last one to go. So he crosses the line. 15 seconds to go to start another lap. That's only 19th place. This is going to be his last chance, his last flying lap. And I think he's really the only one that can do anything about the front runners here, Brian, because you've got Preining, Bortolotti, Stoltz and Miney. 4 of the top 5 are in. Aitken is in as well. So it's all down to Riccardo Feller.
Yes, well, there's lots of congratulations going on in the Manthey EMA pits. Riccardo Feller has a nice clear track in front of him, absolutely nobody in front of him. So it's all down to him now to do exactly what he needs to do. So Riccardo Feller out towards turn 7 at the moment to go into sector 2. So how does that work? When he crosses the line, 40.687, so he's about half a second down on where he needs to be, isn't he?
He is, yeah, half a second down on the absolute best first sector, which was set by Thomas Preining. Aitken was nearly 4 tenths down on it and still got second place, so it's not all over yet, but for Feller it's going to be hard work. He does a 16.998 through the second sector, and Aitken was quickest through the second sector. He's lost 4 tenths there as well, so I'm afraid this is not looking like a challenging lap. And he's going to be lucky to get in the top 10 with this lap, I reckon. He comes out of the final turn, the final driver to cross the line at the end of qualifying. Where does it put Riccardo Feller? Nowhere. 19th. Nightmare session for Riccardo Feller. It's just not working for him this weekend, is it? And it has been struggling to work for him so far this season. Riccardo Feller has actually qualified pretty well most of the time this season, averaging 7th on the grid, but not to be today. Fastest driver, though, Thomas Preining. He will still get those 3 championship points, crucially. Even though he's got the grid penalty, he still gets the 3 points. And then 2 points, and effectively pole position is going to go to Jack Aitken, second quickest. But of the front-running championship contenders, Mirko Bortolotti will be best pleased. Third quickest, he's going to be on the front row of the grid for the 11th round of the championship coming up this afternoon. Here then, confirmation of qualifying for the championship race this afternoon. 1:17.199, a new qualifying lap record for Thomas Preining, but he's got a 5-place grid penalty. Jack Aitken second, will line up on pole. Mirko Bortolotti will line up alongside him on the front row of the grid. Fourth quickest was Lucas Stoltz, despite he's off. Arjun Miney fifth. Another excellent effort from the Indian driver, looking to get back into the top 5 in the championship. Maro Engel third in the championship, 6th. Pretty good session for him too. Thierry Vermeulen excellent in 7th. Jordan Pepper, a great debut so far. He's 8th. 9th, Nicky Tim, and 10th, disappointed and distracted, Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader. And then Lucas Auer ended up back in 11th. Marco Wittmann and Sheldon van der Linde, the best of the BMWs, back in 12th and 13th position. And that is the average qualifying position so far this year for Sheldon van der Linde, 13th. So it remains their Achilles heel. Super slow-mos then of your top 3. Mirko Bortolotti picks up 3 championship points. That will bring him to within 4 points now of Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader. Ironically, Mirko started this event last year with a 7-point lead in the championship. He's trying to make up a 7-point lead, and he's done that already. Down to 4, the gap. Jack Aitken qualifies in 2nd place, but will start the race from pole position. In the end, he was just 89 thousandths of a second behind Thomas Preining, who set the fastest time with that 1:17.199. That's it from Brian Oliver and me, Chris Hartley, in the commentary box. We can go back down to the pit lane now and catch up with Verena Vriet.
And I'm here with Jack Aitken, who's in P2, but because Preining, who is pole position, but he has a penalty 5 places behind, that means that you're Mr. Pole Position. Well, good job.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I wasn't sure what was going to be the situation with Thomas, but I'm for sure happy to start from the front again. This place is a really good one for that as well, because overtaking is tough, but car felt nice, and yeah, it's been a good session.
All right, well, best of luck for the race. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you for the race later on. It's going to be a hot one. Don't want to miss it. See you then. Here are the highlights. Bye-bye.